Chapter 156 Meeting in the Labyrinth. Armored Corps Chief Calguryo advanced his troops with the utmost confidence. After consulting with his advisors, a magic tank squad was to advance as vanguard and bait. Even if Storm Dragon Veldora appeared, the aerial fighter Legion's 100 airship fleet would counter it flawlessly. That force was thought to be more than enough to conquer all of the west side. After all, the 100 airships assured complete dominance by each carrying elite mages to the maximum capacity. In addition, even though the 300 airships carrying the Beast Corps did not have many offensive mages, they specialized in logistic support, so it was not a problem. With both teams simultaneously attacking, Calgaria's armored core would achieve great success. With both teams simultaneously attacking, Calgaria's armored core would achieve great success and honor. Thus, Calgaria laughed heartily at the prospect of this power further increasing in the empire. As the enemy fell for the bait, the main force was to boldly make its appearance and commence the attack. Even though they were at the border of the military nation of Dwargon, their movements would not be detected. It was also not guaranteed that this nation would contact its allied nation, the monster country Tempest. In any case, it was already too late. Even if they were to send troops now, they were too far and time-wise would not be able to make it. Even if they were too busy with their experiments and regretted it, it would be too late. And I don't know, regional. Plus, even if they were guarding all routes, they would be spread far too thin to actually be a hindrance. Everything was going according to plan. Victory was in Calgaria's hands. At that point, on the off chance that the military nation Dwargon tried to help the monster's country Tempest, their neutrality is nulled. If that happened, he would then overwhelm and destroy both nations. Then a well-awaited report came. The vanguard squad sent as bait reported that the monsters of Tempest had come out. They number not much more than 10,000. The report verified that it was one of the enemy's main forces. I won, gloated Calguryo. The enemy easily fell for the trap. They seemed to be much less intelligent than he thought, and failing to guess his invasion route, split up their forces. Reconnaissance had determined that Monster Country Tempest had prepared 120,000 to 150,000 troops. Among them, those that could be considered military units should not even be 50,000. Therefore, as the enemy here number around 10,000, their plan was likely to have all the routes covered and stall for time. With such a pathetic force, forget stalling for time, even the vanguard can finish them off. As expected, the savages, monsters that do not comprehend the importance of information gathering. This was their utmost level of planning. If Veldora doesn't appear, they are fated for defeat. Before the frontal forces arrived to trample all over them, Calguryo would quickly fell the enemy base. Calguryo ordered to halt covert operations and advanced his army towards the capital of Monster Country Tempest. Although there is the matter of the dwarves possibly taking military action, that was determined to no longer be a problem. In fact, Calguryo was immersed in imagining the faces of the panicked enemy as they finally noticed his army. In the end, with no sign of reinforcement from Dwargon, they would head for the labyrinth in the Monster Country Tempest's satellite city. The beasts most likely gave up upon seeing the Empire's might, thought Calguryo. That was obvious. After all, the Empire boasts a great army of 700,000. In addition, despite being fully armed, they marched unprecedented. The marched are an unprecedented speed. This modern army was at a strength beyond the imagination of the dwarves with their backdated technology and arms, magic and science. With their fusion, based on a new cutting-edge combat system, the strongest corps was born. That was the armored corps led by Calguryo. Next scene, in Monster Country Tempest, at the location of the Labyrinth City was nothing save for a single structure. That, in fact, was the entrance to the labyrinth, and other than a staircase to its depths, there was nothing more in the vicinity. This scene was different from what was initially reported, and apparently, the merchants and adventurers on the west side all ran away with the Empire approaching. If that was the case, rather than let the enemy use them, it was likely that the beasts erased everything. They probably feared the possibility of looting. This, in reality, was clearly a strategy to hurt the enemy by preventing the enemy from procuring food. Clever, Calgary spits out. For soldiers who received enhancement surgery from otherworld science and magic, it is possible to perform optimally without food or water for a week. Food packs made with energy balance in mind were created to provide each unit with energy for a single day. Each unit carrying a small storage pack was provided 10 such food packs. Considering such measures taken prior to arriving, there was no loss in performance in the armored corps, even if they could not manage to collect food from this town. Food intake was optimized by making sufficiently small and easy to use food packs. The problem of potable water was easily solved by drawing water through magic. To hope that the supply chain was a weakness, so this great army was simply too naive. Ha, demon lord or not, in the end, to think they're only capable of such shallow thought. Ridiculing the plans of his foe, Kalguryu was certain of victory in this battle. First, he would put a foothold in the satellite city of Monster Country, Tempest. Building a base there, he would subjugate the west side with a smooth flow. If he didn't hurry, the Beast Corps advancing from the north would diminish the scale of his achievement. If Vildora were to come out, there would be the need to stop it, but the storm dragon had made no sign of showing up. Speaking of which, while Karguria was resting in a tent of the provisional headquarters, he was surprised to not receive any reports from the vanguard. After the first time, there was no more communication. According to the communications mage, the magic concentration in the great forest of Jura was apparently interfering with the magic communication waves. As this is a demon lord's domain, that much was to be expected. The remaining enemy troops may have even come back, and fighting had already broke out. Even so, judging from the first troops we encountered, reinforcements should also be fodder. There was no need to worry about the vanguard, so Kalguryu would stop thinking about it. Just in case, he ordered an reconnaissance to look into the matter and dropped the thought. Next scene, the issue now, whether to advance to the capital or the labyrinth. Normally, felling the capital would be given priority. It was close by, so first was defeat the demon lord and then beat the labyrinth. Even if Voldora showed up, it's a simple matter of calling the airship fleet. Though communication was impossible for now, they could easily signal them using magic bullets. Unlike on land, airspeed was so high that the waiting time would be negligible, so there was no need to fear the purportedly weakened storm dragon. The mage reported that the Monster Country Tempest capital had a defense barrier set up around it. Even using the magic canceller device to break the barrier, it would soon regenerate, so there was no point. It seemed to be pretty strong. Rather than breaking in, it would seem to be easier to destroy it from the inside. Even though the magic canceller device was excellent against offensive magic, it's rather weak at beating barriers. That being the case, now would be the time that the remodeled armored core takes center stage. Reconnaissance reported that the monster troops were stationed right in front of the capital. They were the main force of 20,000 high orcs. No problem at all. Kalguryo and his advisors all never doubted their certain victory. After all, they had a great army of 700,000. Victory usually being assured with 3 times the force. With more than 30 times more troops, they had no doubt at all. Can't we just attack both places at the same time? The advisors who were nobles of the empire expressed the opinion. There were no objections. There was no need to pointlessly disagree and create anxiety as there was no rush. Rather, Kalguryu was equally interested in the treasures that lay within the labyrinth. In the end, sending off 200,000 troops to capture the capital, he with 350,000 were to into the labyrinth. Anyway, it was a simple strategy of overwhelming the labyrinth with immense numbers. There being no objections, there's really no doubt that what they were most interested in was the short-term profit rather than capturing the capital, but being assured of victory, Kalguryu and company put their plan to action without realizing their greed. Thus, in Monster Country Tempest, 200,000 troops would advance towards the capital, and 350,000 would focus on capturing the labyrinth. And then, these foolish souls would descend the stairs They could never again climb back up. With the absolute conviction of filling their pockets to the brim with the treasures of the labyrinth, they advanced. The labyrinth grants passage to all, but with safe mode now turned off, there would be a never before seen hell befallen on its visitors. Next scene, one of the innermost rooms of the labyrinth, a place where a secret meeting room could be found that even Rimuru didn't know of. For the first time, because of the master of the labyrinth Ramirez's emergency remodeling, the most powerful denizens of the labyrinth were gathered. The reason, a meeting concerning the annihilation of the fools who dared to invade the labyrinth. But in reality, the purpose of the meeting was of a very different nature. The gathered they were those who were called the Ten Lords of the Labyrinth, Ramirez aide, Labyrinth Janitor, Dungeon Master, Beretta, four groups of the Lords, Floor 90 Guardian, nine head Kumara, Floor 90 Guardian, 80 Guardian, Insect Emperor, Kaiser, Zedjan, Floor 79 Floor Boss, Insect Queen Apito, Floor 70 Guardian, Ghost King Immortal King Adalman, Floor 70 Vanguard, Ghost Knight, Death Paladin Albert, and finally, Floor 50 Alternating Guardians, Golzurl and Mizarl. Both of them were also participating for some reason. Realizing the strength of their fellow lords, it felt as if they were shrinking. They who had thought they could win against anyone now faced a reality as they recognized the clear difference in level. As for Beretta, though he was only assigned to chores, said later, Rune, Master Gadra, would become one of the Ten Lords, but anyway, those sitting down currently were the Ten Lords of the Labyrinth, knowing that irresponsible Ramirez that name would not stick. Normally, all of them wouldn't gather here, but since it was an emergency-like situation, Ramirez invoked her authority, and as a result, for the first time, the whole team had gathered. Well, Valdora was sitting leisurely on the middle seat, but the other lords were gathered for a sole reason, that who amongst them, other than Beretta and the Storm Dragon, was the strongest. This rivalry burned stronger when Demon Lord Rimuru personally praised Alderman and granted him a higher rank. Every one of them wanted to prove to be the most useful. With the lower floors not receiving much action, those lords were most affected. So there was a backlash. Particularly, the two females, Apito and Kumara, had a dangerous relationship. Zijan was calm, and Adalman was burning with ambition. However, they did not really hate each other despite their poisonous auras. In the end, even though they were all aiming to prove themselves, they wouldn't go around sabotaging each other's efforts. These people gathered for the first time, but it was surprisingly quiet. Facing the Empire's invasion of the labyrinth, their hostility towards the enemy took precedence over their rivalry. Lords, you've done well to gather. Today, this labyrinth faces its greatest crisis since its grand opening. With that, let me hear your thoughts. The words by Ramirez signaled signaled the start of the meeting. Ara, isn't that obvious? TN, Kumara ends her line in Orinsu. A massacre, of course. Cutting off Kumara, Apito continues. This time, can you not send the action to my floor? These days, Apito has been happy fooling around with the Holy Knight, right? Say what? That weakling anymore and I'll die of boredom. As they glare at each other, a different kind of tension fills the room. Kohahaha, let's stop the bickering and be at ease. This time, everyone shall get a chance to fight. First, I figured anyone who can pass the 60th floor would be a worthy enemy, but it was annoying, so I stopped. Yeah, that's right, just like Shisho, the Endmaster said waiting for them to cross all the 50th floors is seriously a pain. Normally it would be okay, but with their numbers, it looks like it's gonna take a while. So tell you what, we'll send in 10,000 of them to each floor from the beginning. If you're lucky, someone strong might come along and, With those words from Vildora and Ramirez, the others shone a glint in their eyes. So you mean everyone gets the chance? Asked Adelman, to which, exactly, Ramirez made an exaggerated nod and continued with the explanation. Each of the lords would receive 10,000 troops at a time. Floors 61 to 70, 71 to 80, and the 81 to 90 would get filled 100,000 each, and the remaining would be sent to floors 51 to 60. There were around 350,000 troops heading into the labyrinth, so they would be distributed in this fashion. And then, Gazorl and Mizorl are on standby on floor 30th to eat up the ones that can run back up that far, okay? And even if you up and die, you can always revive, so work hard, ne? Ramirez concluded. With that, the lords got super motivated. So does Rimuro-sama know about this? Zijon broke his silence and spoke, and Apito was surprised. Insect Emperor Kaiser Zijon was a silent man. He never really had much to talk about. He seemed to be receiving combat training from Voldora for a while, and recently it looked like they were close to being evenly matched. Veldora was admittedly very strong, and other than his loyalty to Demon Lord Rimuru, he was a man who only cared for strength. Ehehe, we're keeping it a secret, so let's surprise everyone, eh? Ramirez said with an innocent smile, but in reality, together with Veldora, the two were hatching a devious plot, mainly to surprise Rimuru. It was always like that, and the ones who were involved suffered. Oi, oi, Rimuru-sama won't get angry later, right? Albert asked, worried. No problemo. Veldora and Ramirez assured him. Seeing Beretta was averting his gaze, Albert gave up. Well, it probably wasn't too big a deal, he thought. I just need to beat the enemy. In theory, a battered enemy is easier to beat, but we can revive. There was no need for wait for them to tire out battling monsters on weaker floors. Very well, I concur that we simply need to win, Zijon said with a nod, and the matter was settled. Ramirez and Valdora looked at each other with an evil smile, and the others pretended not to notice. After all, it was the first real battle with the full force. Whatever the case, in truth, none of them were going to let go of this chance. To unleash the true horror of the labyrinth onto its invaders, the 10 lords returned to their respective floors. And so, these denizens of hell wait patiently for their soon to arrive guests. End of chapter 155. End of chapter 155. 156 pala.